I'm staring at the email when my phone starts vibrating in my hand. Eric's name flashing on the screen, his photo, the one from last summer at his parents' lake house, his face open and happy, filling the display. It's approved. Patent granted. Call me. The email attachment shows the official USPTO letterhead. Patent number 11,247,893. Cardiac monitoring device with predictive algorithm. Inventor, Eric James Morrison. My phone keeps buzzing. Third call now. I'm sitting on James Rodriguez's leather couch in his Back Bay condo, wearing yesterday's scrubs because I came here straight from my shift. The afternoon light is streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlook the Charles River. James is in the kitchen, and I can hear him opening a bottle of wine, even though it's not even 4 in the afternoon. You should answer that, James says, walking back into the living room with 2 glasses. He's seen the email. He was standing right behind me when it came through. I don't answer. I let it go to voicemail. Congratulations, James says, handing me a glass. Your boyfriend just became a millionaire. 5 years. 5 years of extra shifts and covering rent and eating ramen while Eric worked in our spare bedroom turned lab, hunched over circuit boards and medical journals. 5 years of just a little longer, Nora. We're so close. 5 years of believing in him, supporting him, being the reason he could pursue this dream. And I'm here, making this choice. But let me start from the beginning. Let me tell you how I became this person. I met Eric Morrison 7 years ago at Massachusetts General Hospital. I was a new grad nurse on the cardiac unit, and he was doing rounds as part of a biomedical engineering consultation. Someone's pacemaker was malfunctioning, and the cardiology team had called in engineering to look at the device data. I noticed him immediately. Not because he was particularly striking, though he was nice looking in that nerdy, earnest way, with dark-rimmed glasses and perpetually rumpled button-downs, but because of how he talked to the patient. Mrs. Kowalski, 73, terrified that her heart was going to stop. Eric sat with her for 20 minutes explaining exactly how pacemakers work, what the malfunction meant, why she was safe. He used metaphors she could understand. He held her hand. After, in the hallway, I thanked him for taking the time. Of course, he said, looking genuinely confused that I'd thank him for basic human decency. She was scared. We got coffee in the cafeteria, then dinner the next week. Then he was my boyfriend, and I was falling in love with his kindness, his brilliant mind, his absolute conviction that he could make things better. Eric was working for a medical device company then, decent salary, good benefits. But he had this idea, this dream, a cardiac monitoring device that didn't just track heart rhythms but predicted potential failures before they happened. Machine learning algorithms analyzing patterns, early intervention, lives saved. Current devices are reactive, he explained one night in our apartment in Somerville, sketching diagrams on a legal pad. By the time they alert, the patient's already in crisis. But if we could predict 12 to 24 hours in advance, his eyes lit up when he talked about it. That light, that absolute passion made me love him even more. You should do it, I told him. Build it. I can't. Not while working full-time. I'd need at least 2 years of dedicated development, probably longer. We can't afford that. I looked at our modest apartment, at Eric sitting cross-legged on our second-hand couch, at this man who sat with scared patients and explained pacemakers and wanted to save lives. What if we could? I said. That's how it started. We did the math. I could pick up extra shifts. There was always overtime available in nursing. We could cut expenses, move somewhere cheaper. I had my nursing degree. I'd always find work. This was Eric's one shot at his dream. Are you sure? He asked. And I could see the hope and guilt warring in his face. Nora, that's not fair to you. That's years of your life. I believe in you, I said. And I meant it. I absolutely meant it. We moved to a smaller place in Medford. Eric quit his job. I started working 5 12-hour shifts a week instead of 3. Eric transformed our second bedroom into a workshop office filled with equipment he bought used off Craigslist, textbooks, medical journals, circuit boards and sensors, and endless lines of code. The first year was hard but hopeful. Eric worked 16-hour days. I worked 60-hour weeks. We ate cheap food and didn't go out and counted every dollar. But we were doing it together. We were building something. I'd come home from the hospital exhausted, feet aching, and find Eric still at his desk, eyes red from staring at screens. I'd bring him food, massage his shoulders, listen to him explain whatever breakthrough or setback he'd had that day. I didn't understand most of it. The technical details were beyond me, but I understood his passion, his purpose. You're amazing, he'd tell me, pulling me into his lap. I couldn't do this without you. I mean that, Nora. None of this happens without you. And I felt it then, that pride, that sense of being part of something important. Year 2, Eric had a working prototype, crude but functional. He tested it on himself, wearing the sensors, refining the algorithms. He presented at a small medical device conference. He started getting interest from potential investors. That's when James Rodriguez entered our lives. James was everything Eric hoped to become. Mid-40s, successful entrepreneur who'd built and sold 2 medical device companies. He attended Eric's conference presentation and approached him afterward. This is good, James said. Really good. Needs refinement, but the core concept is sound. Have you thought about commercial development? Eric was vibrating with excitement when he came home that night. Nora, this guy, he's exactly who we need. He knows the industry, he has connections, he understands the regulatory pathway. They met for coffee, then lunch. Then James made an offer. He'd invest $50,000 for 20% equity in the patent and future company. He'd provide business guidance, regulatory expertise, industry connections. $50,000. It meant Eric could buy proper equipment, pay for patent attorneys, fund the clinical testing needed for FDA approval. It meant this could actually happen. What do you think? Eric asked me. We were sitting at our tiny kitchen table, the investment agreement between us. I think it's incredible, I said. And it was. James believed in Eric's work enough to put in real money. This was validation. This was progress. James started coming to our apartment for meetings. Always professional. Always focused on the work. He was impressive, confident in a way Eric wasn't, comfortable with the business side that made Eric anxious. He talked about licensing deals and market positioning and exit strategies. Your boyfriend's going to be very successful, James told me once when Eric had stepped out to take a call. This device could genuinely change cardiac care. And you've made it possible, you know? Eric talks about you constantly, how you've supported this, believed in him. I felt proud hearing that. Scene. Year 3, the work intensified. Eric was deep in clinical testing, dealing with FDA pre submission meetings, refining the device based on cardiologist feedback. The patent application was filed. Everything was moving forward. But it was also harder. The excitement had faded into grinding daily reality. Eric was stressed constantly, anxious about every setback, obsessed with every detail. He was distracted, preoccupied, living entirely in his head. I'd come home from 12-hour shifts and find him still working, barely noticing I was there. "Hey," I'd say, "I brought dinner." Thanks," he'd reply, eyes on his screen. "The algorithm's not converging properly. I think I need to adjust the weighting parameters." I understood. I did. This was the most important thing in his life. This was everything we'd been working toward. But I was tired. So tired. I was working overtime every week, covering all our expenses and coming home to someone who barely saw me. I told myself it was temporary. Once the patent was approved, once they had licensing deals, everything would change. Eric would be present again. We'd have breathing room. This sacrifice would mean something. Year 4, the patent application was still pending. That's normal, apparently. Patents take years. But Eric was unraveling with the waiting, checking his email obsessively, spiraling with anxiety about potential rejections, office actions, competing patents. James was around more, helping Eric navigate the business side. They'd work at our apartment or meet at James's condo in Back Bay, which made Eric feel simultaneously excited and inadequate. "He has this view of the Charles," Eric said once, "floor to ceiling windows. His living room is bigger than our entire apartment." "You'll have that too," I told him, "once this goes through." If it goes through. Nora, what if it doesn't? What if I've wasted 5 years, wasted your 20s, wasted James' investment? Stop. It's going to work. But I was tired too. Tired of being strong, being supportive, being the one holding everything together. I was 28 years old. My friends were getting married, buying houses, taking vacations. I was living in a cramped apartment in Medford, working 60 hours a week so my boyfriend could chase a dream. I didn't resent it exactly, but I felt it. The weight. That's when things started shifting with James. Nothing dramatic, just gradual. He'd text me sometimes to check in. "How's Eric's stress level?" Or, "Is he sleeping?" Business questions, really, about his investment. But they felt personal, like someone was noticing me. Then one day I had a question about a medical term Eric was using, and I texted James instead of bothering Eric while he was working. James called immediately. "Easier to explain over phone," he said, and then spent 20 minutes talking to me about cardiac physiology, but also asking about my work, my shifts, how I was holding up. "Eric's lucky to have you," he said. "Not every partner would sacrifice this much." Something stirred in my chest. Validation. Recognition. After that, we texted occasionally, still professional, still related to Eric and the project, but more personal too. He'd ask about my day, send funny articles, check in when he knew I'd had a difficult shift. I told myself it was friendly, appropriate. James was Eric's business partner, practically family now. Of course, we'd be in contact. But I started styling my hair a little more carefully when I knew James was coming over for meetings. Started being more aware of what I was wearing. I knew what I was doing. Part of me knew. Year 5 started with Eric getting a full-time office action from the USPTO, a detailed response required about the patent application. He spiraled completely, convinced it was over, the patent would be rejected. They're questioning the novelty of the predictive algorithm, he said, showing me pages of dense legal language I couldn't parse. Nora, what if they reject it? What do I do? I've spent 5 years. You'll respond. You'll address their concerns. This is normal, remember? James said it's concerning. He said this kind of office action can go either way. Eric stopped sleeping properly, stopped eating regularly. The anxiety consumed him. He and his patent attorney spent months crafting the response, addressing every concern, providing additional data and documentation. I tried to be supportive. I did. But I was exhausted. I was working overtime to pay for the patent attorney's fees. Even with James' investment, there were constant expenses. I was 29 years old and felt 40. My back hurt from the long shifts. I hadn't taken a real vacation in 3 years. And I was lonely. So lonely. Eric was physically present but mentally absent, completely consumed by the patent process. We hadn't had a real conversation in months, hadn't gone on a date, barely touched. James noticed. Of course he noticed. You look tired, he said one evening when he came by for a meeting. Eric was in the bathroom. You taking care of yourself? I'm fine, I said automatically. Nora. He looked at me directly. You've been doing this for 5 years. It's okay to be tired. My eyes stung. I couldn't remember the last time someone had asked how I was doing and actually waited for an answer. It's almost over, I said. Once the patent's approved, and then he'll start the company. More stress, more work. You know that, right? I did know that. Some part of me had known all along. This wasn't temporary. This was who Eric was. Brilliant, driven, completely absorbed in his work. The patent approval wouldn't change that. It would just shift to the next challenge. You deserve better, James said quietly. Then Eric came back, and we went back to talking about claims construction and prior art. But something shifted that night. Or maybe it had been shifting all along, and I was just finally admitting it to myself. James started texting me more, not about Eric, about me. How was I doing? Had I eaten? Did I want to grab coffee sometime when I wasn't working? I should have said no. I should have recognized what was happening. I told myself it was innocent, just a friend checking in, someone who understood the situation. But I knew. When I spent extra time getting ready to meet him for coffee, when my heart rate picked up seeing his name on my phone, when I started comparing him to Eric, James, who was successful and confident and present, versus Eric, who was brilliant but anxious and consumed by his work. The coffee became lunch, lunch became drinks after my shift. James would text me about something funny and I'd respond immediately, eager for the distraction, the connection. How are you and Eric doing? My mother asked during one of our rare phone calls. Good, I said automatically. The patent response is submitted. Now, we're just waiting. And you two, as a couple? We're fine, Mom. But we weren't fine. We were roommates managing a project. When Eric did surface from his work long enough to notice me, it was to talk about the patent, the potential licensing deals, the future company. Our future, theoretically. But it didn't feel like ours. It felt like his. Once this goes through, everything changes, Eric said one night, actually joining me on the couch instead of working. Nora, you won't have to work these insane shifts anymore. We can get a nice place. Maybe start thinking about getting married, having kids, all the things we've put on hold. Maybe I hadn't been for a while. I'd been so focused on supporting him, believing in him, that I'd forgotten to check if I actually wanted the life we were building. James texted me that night. Drink tomorrow? You look like you could use one. I should have said no. I said yes. We met at a wine bar in Back Bay, somewhere far from Medford, far from our life. James was already there, wearing a navy sweater that probably cost more than my weekly paycheck, looking relaxed and successful and present. Thank you for coming, he said. I know you're exhausted. I needed this, I admitted. We talked for 3 hours about everything except Eric and the patent. My nursing work, my dreams of maybe becoming a nurse practitioner someday. James' companies, his divorce 3 years ago, his passion for sailing. We talked like real people, not people orbiting around Eric's project. You're impressive, James said. Eric talks about what you've done for him, but I don't think he fully grasped it. You've put your entire life on hold. It's not on hold. It's an investment in our future. Is it? James leaned forward. Or is it an investment in his future? The question landed like a punch, because he was right. This was Eric's dream, Eric's patent, Eric's future company. I'd funded it, supported it, made it possible. But my name wasn't on anything. When people talked about this device, they'd say Eric Morrison invented, not Eric and Nora built. You could have your own life, James said quietly. Your own dreams. You're 29, Nora. What do you want? I couldn't answer. I'd spent 5 years focused on what Eric wanted that I'd forgotten to want anything for myself. James drove me home that night. We sat in his car outside my apartment building, and the silence felt heavy with something unspoken. Thank you, I said, for seeing me. I see you, James said. His hand was on the center console. It would be so easy to reach over, to touch it. I got out of the car instead. But the line had shifted. We both knew it. After that, the texts became more frequent, more personal. Thinking about you. Wish you were here. Nothing explicit, but the intent was clear. And I responded, I engaged. I let it develop. Eric noticed nothing. He was entirely consumed by waiting for the USPTO's response to their office action. He'd check his email hundreds of times a day. He'd wake me up at 2 a.m. to spiral about what would happen if the patent was rejected. Eric, I'd say, exhausted, desperate for sleep before my shift. It's 2 a.m. You need to rest. How can I rest? Nora, if this doesn't go through, it will. But if it doesn't, I stopped trying to soothe him. I was too tired. And increasingly, I didn't care. That's the truth. I was supposed to care about Eric's anxiety, Eric's dream, Eric's patent. But I was so tired of caring. James, meanwhile, was easy. He didn't need anything from me except my company. When we met for drinks or coffee, he was present, engaged, interested in me. Not in what I could do for him, but in me. I told myself we were just friends, that I was allowed to have friends, allowed to have someone who saw me as more than Eric's support system. But I was dressing up for these meetings, wearing perfume, touching his arm when I laughed. I knew exactly what I was doing. Come to my place next time, James said after one of our meetings. I'll cook. You deserve a nice meal in a nice space. I should have said no. This was the obvious moment to step back, recognize where this was heading, Make a choice. I said yes. I went to his place 2 weeks later after an evening shift. I showered at the hospital, changed into clothes I'd brought, texted Eric that I was grabbing drinks with work friends. James' condo was as impressive as Eric had described. Floor to ceiling windows overlooking the Charles, modern kitchen with high-end appliances, art on the walls, the life that Eric fantasized about having someday. Wine? James asked, and I nodded. He'd made pasta, nothing fancy, but it was nice being cooked for. Nice sitting at a real dining table instead of our cramped kitchen counter. Nice having someone's full attention. We talked, laughed, drank more wine, and then we were standing closer than friends should stand, his hand on my lower back, my hand on his chest. Nora, he said, we should talk about what this is. I know what this is, I said. You have a boyfriend, my business partner. I know. If we do this? I know, I said again. I kissed him. I made the choice. He didn't push it. I did. And then we were in his bedroom, and I was making a choice I knew I couldn't take back. I told myself I'd tell Eric, that this meant Eric and I were over and I'd end it properly before anything else happened. But I didn't. I went home at midnight, slipped into bed next to Eric, who woke up just enough to kiss my shoulder and mumble, "Love you," before falling back asleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, feeling Eric's familiar weight beside me, and felt nothing. No guilt, no regret, just emptiness. That's when I knew something was really wrong with me. Normal people feel guilty. Normal people feel conflicted. I just felt tired. It continued. That's the part that makes me who I am. It wasn't a mistake, a one-time thing. It became a pattern. I'd tell Eric I was working late or meeting friends. I'd go to James's condo. We'd have dinner, drinks, sex. I'd go home to Eric. James never pushed for more. He didn't ask me to leave Eric. He didn't make promises about a future together. This was just something we were doing, an escape for both of us. Does this bother you? I asked him once, lying in his bed at 10 p.m., knowing I'd have to leave soon. That I'm with him? Do you want it to bother me? James asked. I don't know what I want. That was true. I didn't want Eric, not really. But I didn't want James either. I just wanted out. Out of the cramped apartment. Out of the financial stress. Out of my life being on hold for someone else's dream. Eric remained oblivious. Why would he suspect? I was Nora. Loyal, supportive Nora, who'd given 5 years to his dream. Who believed in him when no one else did. Who sacrificed everything. The USPTO should respond soon, Eric told me one morning. James thinks within the next few weeks. Nora, this is it. This is everything we've worked for. Everything he'd worked for. Everything I'd funded. I know, I said. And then we can start planning. The company, the licensing deals, us, our life together. Our life, his dream, his company, his patent. Sounds good, I said. That afternoon I texted James, can I come over after my shift? 3 weeks before the end, Eric started talking about proposing. He didn't say it directly, but the signs were there. He asked my ring size, just curious. He started talking about our future more concretely. He mentioned his parents' anniversary party next month. How nice it would be to make an announcement there. Once the patent's approved, I want to do this right, he said. Take you somewhere nice, celebrate everything you've made possible. You deserve that, Nora. You deserve everything. I felt panic, cold, sharp panic, because I didn't want to marry Eric. I didn't want our life together. I didn't even particularly like who I was when I was with him. This supportive, sacrificing person whose entire identity was about making someone else's dreams happen. But what could I say? After 5 years, after everything I'd put in, how could I leave right before the finish line? I went to James' place that night. He's going to propose, I told James, once the patent's approved. James was quiet, pouring wine. What do you want? I don't know. Nora, what do you want? Not this, not him, not a life where I'm still just supporting his next dream. Then end it? How? After 5 years? After everything? By choosing yourself for once. But I didn't. I didn't end it. I just continued the affair, continued lying, continued living in this horrible limbo. 2 weeks before the end, the USPTO requested additional information. Minor clarification, the patent attorney said. Standard procedure. But Eric panicked completely. This is bad, he said, showing me the letter. They're not satisfied. They're going to reject it. They're not rejecting it. They're asking for clarification. You don't understand patent law, Nora. This could mean... I don't understand patent law, I snapped. I just paid for the patent lawyer for 5 fucking years. Eric looked shocked. I never snapped. Supportive Nora didn't snap. You're right, he said quietly. I'm sorry. I'm just stressed. I know. I'm sorry too. But I wasn't sorry. I was angry. Angry at him for his anxiety, his obsession, his complete inability to see me as anything other than his support system. Angry at myself for enabling it. Angry at all of it. I went to James's place that night and told him I hated my life. So change it, he said. How? Leave him. Before the patent's approved. Walk away clean. I can't. Not after 5 years. Not right before. You can. You just don't want to be the villain. He was right. I wanted to have it both ways. I wanted out, but I wanted Eric to end it. I wanted to leave, but I wanted it to be justified, to not be the bad guy. But I was already the bad guy. I'd been sleeping with his business partner for months. I'd checked out of our relationship while still accepting his love, his gratitude, his plans for our future. 1 week before the end, Eric's attorney submitted the clarification response. Now it was just waiting. The final wait. This is it, Eric said. Next few days, we'll know. Nora, I can feel it. This is going to work. He was buzzing with nervous energy. He couldn't sit still. He started talking about the licensing deals James had been exploring. A major medical device company was interested. Preliminary discussions of $1.8 million for the patent rights, plus royalties. Life-changing money. Think about what this means, Eric said. You can quit nursing if you want. Go back to school. We can buy a house. Start our life. Start our life after 5 years of living his. That sounds amazing, I said, and I sounded convincing. I'd gotten good at sounding convincing. That night, I was supposed to meet Eric for dinner. A rare date, his idea. We should celebrate early, he'd said. Everything we've accomplished together. I texted him that I was too tired, had a headache from my shift. Could we do it tomorrow instead? Of course. Rest up. Love you. I went to James' place instead. We had sex, ordered Thai food, drank expensive wine. It was easy and comfortable and completely wrong. What happens when the patent's approved? James asked. We were on his couch, my legs across his lap. What do you tell Eric? I don't know. Nora? I'll figure it out. Maybe Maybe once the pressure's off, once he's not so stressed, we can have an actual conversation about our relationship, about what I want. And what do you want? Not him, I said. Not anymore. James's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. Eric, asking if I've heard anything from the USPTO. Have you? No. Should be any day, though. 3 days before the end, Eric barely slept. He was checking his email every 5 minutes, pacing, spiraling. What if they rejected after all this? What if we've wasted 5 years? We haven't wasted anything, I said automatically. But I'd wasted 5 years. That was increasingly clear. 5 years of my 20s gone. 5 years of supporting someone else's dream while forgetting my own. 5 years that led to me becoming someone who could cheat on a good person with his business partner. Because Eric was good. That was the thing. He wasn't abusive or cruel. He didn't deserve this. He was just absorbed in his work, anxious about his dream. That didn't justify what I was doing, but I did it anyway. 2 days before the end, James texted, "Can you come over after your shift tomorrow? Need to see you." I said yes. 1 day before the end, I worked a 12-hour shift. Exhausting. A code blue, 2 admissions, 1 family meeting that wrecked me. I was tired down to my bones. Eric texted, "Still no news? Going insane. Can't focus. Love you." James texted, "You still coming?" I showered at the hospital, changed into the clothes I'd brought, drove to Back Bay instead of home to Medford, parked in James's building garage. I rode the elevator to his floor thinking about nothing. That's where I was by then, just numb, going through motions, making terrible choices because they were easier than making hard ones. James opened the door. Hey. We had wine, talked about nothing important, had sex. Lay in his bed afterward while the afternoon light faded and Boston spread out below us through those floor-to-ceiling windows. That's when my phone buzzed on James' nightstand. 3:47 p.m. email notification. USPTO. My stomach dropped. I knew. Before I even looked, I knew. I opened it. "It's approved. Patent granted. Call me." Attachment. Official patent document. Patent number 11,247,893. Cardiac monitoring device with predictive algorithm. Inventor. Eric James Morrison. 5 years. It had happened. His dream. Our dream. The thing we'd worked toward. My phone started vibrating. Eric calling. His face filling my screen. That photo from last summer, happy and open. I stared at it. I was lying naked in his business partner's bed, looking at my boyfriend's name. "You should answer that," James said. He was behind me, reading over my shoulder. I didn't answer. I let it go to voicemail. It immediately started ringing again. "Nora," James said. "Answer it." "I can't." "You have to." 3rd call. 4th. Text from Eric. "Nora, where are you? Call me." Another text. "It happened. It actually happened." Another. "I need to tell you in person. Coming home. Be there in 20. "Shit," I said. "He's going home." "You should go," James said. He was already getting up, getting dressed. Professional now. Distant. As if we'd just concluded a business meeting. I got dressed. My hands were shaking. This was it. This was the moment I'd been dreading and maybe hoping for. The collision, the end. "Congratulations," James said. "Your boyfriend just became a millionaire." "Don't." "I mean it. This is what you wanted, right? What you've worked for?" I looked at him. At this man I'd been sleeping with for months. This successful, confident man who represented everything Eric wanted to be. "Did you ever care?" I asked. About me, or was this just convenient? James smiled slightly. Does it matter? It didn't. Not really. Whatever this was between us, it wasn't real. It wasn't a relationship. It was an escape, a distraction. For both of us. I should go, I said. Yeah, you should. I drove home to Medford in a daze. Traffic was terrible. Eric's texts kept coming. Where are you? Nora, please call me. This is the biggest day of our lives and I can't reach you. Are you okay? I'm worried. 25 minutes to get home. The longest 25 minutes of my life. I practiced what to say, how to explain, where I'd been, why I hadn't answered. I pulled onto our street and saw Eric standing outside our building, pacing, his phone to his ear, calling me again. My phone buzzed in my hand. He saw my car. His face lit up. Absolute joy. Pure, uncomplicated happiness. I parked, got out. He was running toward me. Nora, did you see? Did you get my emails? Yes, congratulations. Congratulations? Nora, this is everything. 5 years. It's approved. The patent is granted. He grabbed me, hugged me, spun me around. We did it. You and me. We actually did it. I could smell James' cologne on my clothes. I wondered if Eric could smell it too. Where were you? Eric asked, still holding me. I've been calling for an hour. My phone died, I said. The lie came easily. Too easily. I was at Target, shopping. I didn't realize. Target, Eric repeated. He was so happy, so excited, he didn't question it. Why would he? You were at Target during the biggest moment of our lives. He laughed. He thought it was funny, perfect even. So typical that this huge moment would arrive during something mundane. Come inside, he said, taking my hand. We need to celebrate. I already called James. He's coming over. He's bringing champagne. The good stuff. Nora, do you understand what this means? We went inside. Our small apartment in Medford with its second-hand furniture and Eric's workspace/bedroom. The place where we'd lived for 5 years, where I'd worked overtime to pay rent, where Eric had built his dream. Tell me everything, I said, because that's what I was supposed to say. Eric pulled up the email on his laptop, showed me the official patent document, explained what it meant, the claims that were approved, the protection he had, the validation of his work. And James already heard from that medical device company. Eric said, the licensing deal, they're ready to move forward. $1.8 million, Nora, for the patent rights, plus royalties on every device sold. That's incredible. It's life-changing. Everything changes now. He took my hands. For both of us, you can finally stop working yourself to death. We can get married, buy a house, start our family. All those things we put on hold, we can do them now. The doorbell rang. James. I felt sick. Eric answered. James came in with champagne, a huge smile, professional congratulations. He didn't look at me. To Eric Morrison, James said, pouring champagne. And patent number 11,247,893. You earned this, man. 5 years of brilliant work. I couldn't have done it without Nora, Eric said, pulling me close. Seriously, none of this happens without her. She made this possible. James looked at me then. Brief, unreadable. To Nora too, then, he said, raising his glass. The unsung hero. We drank. Eric talked excitedly about next steps, the licensing deal, forming a company, his vision for the future. James engaged professionally, giving advice, making connections. I stood there holding my champagne, still smelling like James's bed, and felt completely hollow. They talked for an hour. Business stuff, mostly. I stopped following it. I was thinking about how I'd been in James's condo 3 hours ago, how Eric had been home alone, checking his email obsessively, and the approval had come, how he'd tried to call me over and over to share the biggest moment of his life, and I'd been in bed with his business partner, ignoring his calls. We should celebrate properly, Eric said. Dinner tomorrow? The three of us? Nice place? Can't, James said smoothly. Business trip. Boston to New York for meetings. But you two should celebrate. Just you and Nora. You deserve a night. After James left, Eric turned to me. His eyes were bright, happy, full of love and gratitude and hope. Marry me, he said. I froze. What? I don't have a ring yet. I wanted to wait until the patent was approved so I could get you something really special. But Nora, marry me. Let's make this official. You've been with me through everything. You believed in me when no one else did. You gave 5 years of your life to make this happen. I want to spend the rest of my life making that up to you. He meant it. Every word. This good, brilliant, anxious man who'd spent 5 years building a dream, who'd been supported by someone he trusted completely, who had no idea that same someone had been betraying him for months. Eric, you don't have to answer now. I know it's sudden, but think about it. Once we finalize the licensing deal, I'll get you the most beautiful ring. We'll do it right. Everything we've put on hold, it's all possible now. I couldn't speak. I felt like I was drowning. I love you, Eric said. So much. Thank you for believing in me. He kissed me. I tasted champagne and the life we'd built together and the future he imagined. And I felt nothing except the certainty that I couldn't do this. I couldn't marry him. I couldn't keep lying. But I didn't say that. I just kissed him back and said, I love you too. That night, Eric wanted to celebrate properly. He was euphoric, on top of the world, unable to contain his joy. And I went through the motions, because what else could I do? Afterward, he fell asleep immediately, his arm around me, his breathing deep and even. The sleep of someone with no worries, no guilt, someone who'd accomplished his dream and had the woman he loved beside him. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, feeling his weight against me, and knew I was going to destroy him. The next day, I called in sick to work. I couldn't face it, couldn't be functional. Eric was up early, energized, already on the phone with lawyers and accountants. The licensing deal was moving forward quickly. Within a month, they'd have the contract finalized. Within 2 months, the money would transfer. Then we'll look at houses, Eric said over breakfast. Nothing crazy, but something nice. With an office for me and maybe a room for you to study if you want to go back to school. What do you think? Sounds good, I said automatically. He kissed my forehead. I'm the luckiest person alive. After he left for a meeting, I texted James. We need to talk. Can't. New York for 3 days. When I'm back. James. Nora, give it time. Think about what you want. But I knew what I wanted. I wanted to not be this person. I wanted to go back to before I made these choices. I wanted to undo the last few months. But I couldn't. And I was too cowardly to confess, to tell Eric the truth, to end it cleanly. So I just continued, letting Eric plan our future, letting him believe I wanted what he wanted, putting off the inevitable because I didn't know how to face it. 2 weeks passed. The licensing deal was finalized. $1.8 million transferred to Eric's account. He cried when he saw the number. Actual tears. We did it, Nora. We actually did it. He took me to Cartier that weekend, bought me a ring, 2 carats, platinum setting, more than I'd earned in a year of nursing. When you're ready, he said, holding the box. No pressure, but I want you to have this. I want you to know I'm serious about us, about our future. I took the ring. I wore it. I let him tell his parents, who were thrilled. I let him post about the patent approval on LinkedIn, mentioning me as the reason it was possible. I let everyone congratulate us on our success, our engagement, our future. And I kept seeing James. Secret meetings, stolen hours, an affair that had no future but I couldn't end. You're wearing his ring, James said, touching the diamond. I know. Are you going to marry him? I don't know. Nora, you can't keep doing this. I know. But I did keep doing it. For another month, 2 months, living this horrible double life, engaged to Eric while sleeping with James, planning a future I knew I didn't want, being too cowardly to end either relationship. Eric was happy, happier than I'd ever seen him. He'd formed his company, Morrison Medical Devices. He was negotiating manufacturing contracts, planning clinical trials, building the future he dreamed of. Come work with me, he said one night. Help me build this company. You've been part of this from the beginning. You should be part of the success, too. I'm a nurse, Eric. I don't know anything about running a medical device company. You can learn, or just do whatever you want. The point is, you don't have to work yourself to death anymore. You can choose. But I couldn't choose. I was paralyzed, trapped between the life I was supposed to want and the reality that I didn't want any of it. The end came 3 months after the patent approval, not dramatically, just quietly, with a truth that could no longer be hidden. Eric's parents were in town. He wanted to take them to dinner, celebrate properly. James was invited, business partner, investor, friend. I tried to get out of it, made excuses. But Eric insisted. They want to meet you properly, he said. My mom keeps asking about you, about the wedding. We met at a nice restaurant in Back Bay. Eric's parents were sweet, kind people. They hugged me, thanked me for supporting their son, welcomed me to the family. He never could have done this without you, Eric's mother said. You're a blessing. I felt like I was going to throw up. James arrived late, professional, warm with Eric's parents. Didn't look at me. Dinner was fine until dessert. Eric's father was telling a story about Eric as a child, always taking things apart to see how they worked. Eric was laughing, relaxed, happy. Then James' phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned slightly. Sorry, he said. Work email. Give me 1 second. He typed a quick response, but his phone was angled toward me and I saw it. Not work. A woman's name. Heart emoji. Miss you. Something in my face must have changed because Eric noticed. You okay? He asked quietly. Fine, just tired. But I wasn't fine because I just realized something. James was seeing someone else. Of course he was. Whatever we had, it wasn't exclusive. It wasn't real. It was just convenient. I destroyed my relationship with Eric for something that meant nothing. The rest of dinner was a blur. I excused myself early. Headache, exhaust from work. Eric was concerned, understanding. James was unreadable. Feel better, Eric said, kissing me goodbye. Love you. I drove home and sat in our apartment and finally let myself feel it. The weight of what I'd done, the magnitude of my choices, the reality that I'd betrayed a good person for nothing, for an affair with someone who didn't care about me, who was probably sleeping with other people, who saw me as convenient. I'd given 5 years to support Eric's dream. Then I destroyed those 5 years, and him for nothing. I texted James, "You're seeing someone." He responded immediately, "We never said exclusive." "No, we didn't." "Nora, you're engaged." "I know what I am." I sat there staring at my phone, at the ring on my finger, at the life I'd built and destroyed simultaneously. I should have told Eric then, that night. I should have confessed, ended it, let him move on. But I didn't. I was too cowardly. So I just took off the ring and put it in my nightstand drawer and went to bed. Eric found it the next morning. "Why is your ring in the drawer?" he asked. His voice was careful, concerned. I needed to think. "About what?" "About whether I want this." Silence. Long, terrible silence. Then, "You don't want to marry me." It wasn't a question. And his tone had changed. Not angry, just knowing, like he'd suspected for a while and had finally been given confirmation. "I don't know what I want," I said. "Yes, you do." Eric sat down on the bed. His face was pale. "You've been different for months, distant. I told myself it was the stress, the waiting. But that's not it, is it? Eric, is there someone else?" I couldn't answer. My silence was answer enough. "Who?" His voice was quiet, deadly quiet. "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me." "Who?" I still couldn't say it, but something in my face must have given it away. Because Eric's expression changed. Shock, realization, horror. "No," he said, "not Eric. James. You're fucking James." I'd never heard him swear like that, never seen his face like that. The betrayal, the devastation was complete. "How long?" "It doesn't... How long, Nora?" "A few months." "A few months. While I was waiting for the patent. While you were wearing my ring. While I was planning our future." He stood up. "When the patent was approved. When I called you. You didn't answer because..." "Yes." "Oh my God." He looked like he was going to be sick. "I called you to tell you the biggest news of my life. Over and over, and you were with him." "I'm sorry." "You're sorry." He laughed, but it wasn't a laugh. 5 years, Nora. You gave 5 years. You made this possible. And then you... He stopped. "Why?" "I don't know." "That's not an answer." "I don't have a better one." We stood there in our bedroom, in the apartment I'd paid rent on for 5 years, surrounded by the life we'd built. And I watched him understand, watched the man who'd loved me, trusted me, built his dreams with me, realize exactly who I was. "Get out," he said. "Eric, get out of my apartment. Today." "This is my apartment too. I paid rent for 5 years. And now I'll pay you back, every dollar. Consider it payment for services rendered. But get out. I can't look at you." I left that day, threw my things in bags, called my friend Sarah, who let me stay with her. Didn't explain why, didn't tell anyone yet. Eric told people. Of course he did. He told his parents, his friends. He told everyone what I'd done, and they all chose his side. Why wouldn't they? He was the victim, the good person who'd been betrayed, and I was the person who'd destroyed him. Sarah finally asked me what happened. "I had an affair," I said, "with his business partner. For months." Sarah stared at me. "Nora, Jesus Christ." "I know. Why?" "I don't know. But I did know. I was tired, resentful, selfish. I wanted something that was mine, something easy, something that didn't require sacrifice. And I took it without considering the cost." James stopped responding to my texts. Professional distance. Our affair was over. It had probably been over for a while. I just hadn't realized. Eric filed for the dissolution of the domestic partnership. Clean break. He offered me $50,000, compensation for the years I'd supported him. I didn't take it. I'd earned money during those years. I'd just spent it on rent and bills. I didn't deserve a payout for doing something terrible. He moved on quickly, not to hurt me, just because he could. A woman from his business school, smart and successful and everything I wasn't. They were engaged within 6 months. She worked with him at Morrison Medical Devices, partners in business and life, the kind of partnership we never had. I saw the announcement on LinkedIn, her name next to his, both of them smiling, the comments full of congratulations, excitement, joy. His patent had been cited in 3 medical journals. Morrison Medical Devices had closed a Series A funding round. Eric was living the dream, his dream, the one I'd funded. And I was alone, still nursing, still working overtime. But now in a worse apartment, with no partner, with friends who distanced themselves, with a reputation. James got engaged too. To someone from his social circle, someone appropriate, successful, established, the affair with me had been nothing. A blip. Barely worth mentioning. I'm 30 now. Eric just turned 33. I saw on his company website that Morrison Medical Devices received FDA approval to begin clinical trials. His cardiac monitoring device will be in hospitals soon, saving lives, making a difference. His name will be on every device, in every medical journal. Eric Morrison, inventor, brilliant engineer, success story. My name isn't anywhere. I'm the person who made it possible and then destroyed it. The person who supported him for 5 years and then betrayed him at the moment of his triumph. I'm still nursing, still working long shifts at Mass General. The work is fine, meaningful even. But it's not the future I'd imagined. It's not the life I was supposed to have. Sometimes I see updates about Eric and his fiancée. They bought a house in Cambridge. She's pregnant. They're building the life I was supposed to have, except with someone who deserves it. I don't date. I tried, briefly, but it never works. Men ask about my past relationships, why my longest relationship ended, and I don't know how to answer. I cheated on him with his business partner while he was waiting for his patent approval doesn't make for a good first date conversation. The worst part isn't that I'm alone. It's that I know what I am. I'm someone who's capable of destroying a good person, someone who had something real and threw it away for nothing. Someone who was trusted completely and violated that trust in the worst possible way. I told myself stories for months during the affair, that Eric didn't appreciate me, that I deserved something for myself, that the sacrifice I'd made entitled me to happiness, even if that happiness came from hurting him. But those were lies. Eric did appreciate me. He told me constantly. He planned a future with me. He bought me a ring with his first success because he wanted me to share in it. And I did deserve happiness, but not at his expense, not through betrayal, not by destroying someone who loved me. The sacrifices I made were my choice. I chose to support his dream. No one forced me. And those sacrifices didn't give me the right to betray him. I was tired, resentful, lost in my own life, but that doesn't justify what I did. It explains it maybe, but it doesn't excuse it. I think about that day sometimes, the day the patent was approved. Eric calling me over and over, desperate to share the best news of his life. And me, in James's bed, ignoring the calls, making a choice to prioritize my own desire over his joy. That's who I am, someone who made that choice. Eric's wedding is next month. I saw the announcement, small ceremony, family and close friends. At his parents' lake house where that photo on his phone was taken. The one that used to flash when he called me. I hope he's happy. I mean that. He deserves happiness. He deserves a partner who values him, supports him, stays faithful to him. Someone better than me. I destroyed a good person on the most important day of his life. I betrayed someone who trusted me completely. I threw away 5 years of partnership for a few months of nothing. That's who I am. I have to live with that now.